Well, good evening and welcome to Stab the Dragon Productions. It is Wednesday, the 23rd of October, 2024. Just a couple of weeks away from the election and all the chaos that will ensue. Tonight's going to be kind of a rambling rant talking about the election and what to do to prepare for what may happen afterwards. But first of all, notice that it seems like Trump is winning. If you just read all the polls, if you look at all the indicators, early voting, the interviews of people on the street, even by people like MSNBC, it seems like the tide really is shifting to Donald Trump. I am obviously a Trump fan, or if not a Trump fan, I think I'm a Trump fan. But I am definitely a conservative, but I'm also looking at what the Republicans have accomplished in the last 30 years. And I've been red pilled. I look at what the Republicans have done and say they've done nothing. The uniparty between the Republicans and the Democrats has been in power ever since Reagan. Both Bushes, Clinton, Obama, uh, the guy who's in the office right now. It's the uniparty. And we are slow marching and now rapidly running towards tyranny, towards oppression, and the weirdos and the perverts have taken over. Okay, that's just how it is. Trump is like a bull in a china shop, and he is coming in and wrecking their little world, and I think it's good for the little guy like us. So, just for an example, yesterday, President Biden said that Trump should be locked up. Well, the fact of the matter is they've arrested him, they've booked him, they've charged him, they've put him on trial. He's a convicted felon on counts that are going to be overthrown because it's all bullcrap. And so other trials that he's been put through have been rejected. So, who's arresting who? The left started this. When you look at what Vice President Harris said just today, she compared Trump to a Nazi, to a Hitler, to a fascist, that he's unhinged, that he's crazy. The fact of the matter is to liberals, Bible-believing Christians, conservatives who may not necessarily be Christian, we are unhinged to them. They cannot figure us out. They don't understand us. We have two separate worldviews in this country. And so you have the liberal leftist worldview, and you have the Bible-based, even if you're not Christian, the Judeo-Christian based conservative worldview. Those two worldviews don't line up on hardly anything at all. They are opposites. And so one side looks at the other side and completely does not understand it. And so, yeah, you're unhinged. Well, guess what? We think they're unhinged. They are. So this is where we've come to as a country, is the views have nothing in common. The parties have nothing in common. And so when you reach that point, can the Republic stand? I'm not so sure. General Kelly used to be a Trump advisor or on his staff. He said Trump is like a fascist, that he's bent on disrupting or ignoring the Constitution and doing horrible things. Well, again, that's a Marine Corps general. I had a lot of respect for, I'm an Army veteran, but I had a lot of respect for Marines. And you look at General Milley from the Army, there's a whole bunch of general officers who are leftists. They're woke, they're leftists, and that's their ideology. Can they still serve in the military? Absolutely. Some of them are heroes. I mean, some of them have many medals and they deserve it. They've got a lot of time in combat. So, some of these guys are heroes, but their worldview is leftist. And so General Kelly comes up with this radical statement about Trump. So that's the kind of world that we live in. and the two sides have no common ground. They can't even communicate, let alone cooperate. So what's going to happen with this election? Now, I am drinking a homemade cocktail called the Rusty Nail. It's a classic cocktail dating back from almost 100 years ago, I guess. And all this is scotch, about 3 or 4 portions of scotch, and then 1 portion of drambuie. And drambuie is kind of a scotch and honey based liqueur that's very sweet. It comes from the Isle of Skye, and it's very sweet. This teacher's Highland Cream is peated, so it is not real sweet. It's got some sweetness to it, but it's smoky, peated. So the Rusty Nail. Cheers. Now the election coming up, I personally, looking at all the indicators, all the polls, just the anecdotal stories from around the country, the rallies and all that, looking at the evidence of the early voting that is leaning heavily towards the Republicans all across the country, swing states, everywhere. I'm thinking that it's going to be, if not a landslide, it will be a decisive win. It's not going to be real close. Too big to rig is the phrase. Nonetheless, despite how big I think the victory is going to be for Trump, the left will cry foul. The left will say, we cheated. The left will say it was rigged. You see, there's a history with the left. When Trump won against Hillary, the left said it was rigged. When Bush the younger won against Gore, and who did he go against the second time around? I forgot his name. But they said it was too close and that the left actually won, and that Bush and the Supreme Court cheated. They stole the election. So every time that a conservative, or at least a Republican, Bush was no conservative, at least a Republican wins, they say Republicans stole the election. Well, in 2020, when Biden won and Trump says, hey, the election was stolen, I tend to believe that. Absolutely. There's plenty of evidence for that. So now, this election, I think it's going to be too big to rig. So, but they'll still say this was a rigged election, or we stole it, or we cheated, or whatever. But see, that again, when you have two groups whose worldviews are in absolute opposition to each other, there's no common ground, and so there can be no agreement on facts, on anything, and so you can call the sky blue and they'll call the sky red. So that's just how it is. And so be ready. I think the left has so much to lose this time that there will be extreme violence. There was violence last time Trump won. You may not remember it, but there was riots everywhere. Even when George W. Bush won, there was riots everywhere. But picture the 2020 riots of George Floyd. Multiply those times 10. That's what's going to be happening in 2 weeks. If Trump wins, the left will unleash Antifa, BLM, and there's going to be a remarkable amount of violence all in the big cities. And so it's going to be essentially approaching a civil war. Will it reach the point of civil war? Here's where it will become civil war. If the left, and I think they might do this, if they arrest Trump and put him in jail, if the Congress refuses to certify the election after a significant victory, it's not even going to be close, it's going to be a significant win, maybe not a landslide, but it'll be significant, and they're going to not certify the election. They may Look, on election day, there may very well be a lot of outages of electricity, of the internet, of cell phones. There's going to be a lot of disturbances, and that's why we're all voting early. Is we don't trust the Dems and the big tech companies with election day. There's going to be shenanigans. So if Trump wins, and I think it's going to be significant, then the left will unleash everything. And if they go so far as to arrest Trump again, or God forbid, try another assassination attempt. And the past 2 assassination attempts, I'm convinced were not lone wolves. There was some organization behind them. So I think there's probably going to be another one. And so if they pull that off, or if they arrest Trump, that's when you might possibly see civil war. I kind of think conservatives across the country, Republicans in general, and conservatives, and they're not necessarily the same people, are too weak-spined. I don't think we have it in us to actually fight. I think we'd rather submit to tyranny. I think that's where we are as a country right now. And so, I mean, there'll be pockets of resistance, but there may be some states that stand up and say, no, you know, it could be, and there might be some of the states get together and say no. So we'll have to wait and see. But in case of the violence, and I'm almost guaranteeing violence, I mean, that's a 98% probability. In case of violence, what should we do? Okay, how do you get prepared for that? Well, there's only a couple of weeks left, and so if you haven't been preparing for this, you are so far behind the power curve. But nonetheless, there's some things you can do. All right, be sure you've got some batteries on hand and a battery-operated radio. Be sure your cell phone is charged up, your gas tanks are full. If you can get one of the little battery packs for your cell phone that can give you, some extra charges. Mine is solar powered, so you can unfold this and, it takes forever to charge that way. But if you can get a hand crank radio, and yeah, they make those. I've got one. Extra water. Go to the store, get some cases of water, a few gallons of water. If you can, I would order some water purification tablets or a water purification system. You can get some of those for as low as 20 or 30, 40 bucks. Be prepared. What are you going to do for waste disposal and personal hygiene, especially if you're in an apartment, in the city? What are you going to do? Power goes out, and the power may go out. Look, we've got non-state actors and we've got state actors that could get involved with this. You think China is rooting for Trump? No. You think the Russians are rooting for Trump? Oh, you may hear that in the news, but are you serious? No. The Russians and the Chinese don't want a strong U.S. They don't want a strong president. So how about fuel? Do you have a Coleman stove and some propane to cook with? You're going to have something, because if the electricity grid goes down, what are you going to do? Shelter, warmth, and fuel. Hey, winter's just around the corner. Do you have a sleeping bag? Do you have warm blankets? Do you have a tent? Lighting. Again, batteries for a flashlight. Do you have Kim lights that you just snap, shake? There you go. Do you have candles? You're going to need lighting. How about your meds? What are you going to do for meds? I mean, what if the supply chain completely breaks down? These are all things that could happen after the election, in between the election and the inauguration. You can have, guns and ammo, right? Security, protecting yourself and your family should be a priority. Now, some of the people may live in places that don't allow such. Well, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you there. So I would say get ready for some form of unusual excitement, some drama that's going to be happening on election day and the weeks following, especially if Trump wins. And as far as state actors, if Trump wins, China may very well say, okay, we're going to go ahead and try to take Taiwan now. The experts are saying China's not going to move until 2027. But I don't know if they look at it and say, hey, Trump won, we better get it done now. There may be World War III. We've already got war in Europe going on, and now the North Koreans are entering the picture with their troops in Ukraine. Who knew? So is Ukraine going to declare war on North Korea? If you've got North Korean troops in your territory, that's war, right? So then what if Ukraine somehow does a strike on North Korea? What are you going to do? So these are things that I see as being in our near future. At the minimum, there's going to be post-election trauma and chaos, severe rioting. Probably there's going to be some electrical outages and maybe water outages. There's going to be some severe chaos. And so I would suggest that you have some extra food, extra water, some light, some batteries, fill up your cars with gas, guns and ammo, uh, figure out a plan to survive in post-election chaos. All right, this is Stab the Dragon out here.